Hello. How you doing today? Hope you're doing great. Hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing super swell. I am back to ramble, and my ramblings this evening, well, this morning, afternoon, this time will be about something. I really wanted to talk about my faith, my journey my journey through faith. I haven't really talked about it. I don't really discuss um my my faith a lot. Not I do, but I'm a very faithful person. I believe in God and Christ and, I believe in the Bible. I didn't always used to, but I do. Um, but I say because I don't really talk about it. I'm a very private person when it comes to certain matters. I like to keep things close to my chest. My relationship with God is one of those, relationships that I keep close. Um, I do believe that this is my belief, obviously, but I believe that your relationship with God, if you have one, should be an intimate one. Be, something that I'm not saying you have to keep between you and him, but it is something that I keep between me and him, and it's not something that I'm just like, "Oh, got this and got that." It is very special to me. I have gotten to this place that I really didn't think that I would ever be. Honestly, I never thought I would be in this space with God. So it is very special to me, and I am very grateful for the life that He has given me. Even if it hasn't always been easy, living this life. I have always been very loving of humankind, and I don't want to reduce um, all humans to the actions of some humans who decide to do bad things. Um, just like I don't want to reduce God to the actions of humans. So I don't want to say, how could God make this or how could God let this happen? You know, we were given free will. And we decide what we do with that, so I can't I don't want to reduce him to what we decide to do with our free will, but I can be grateful for the life that I was given. Um, like for my family, my mom and my dad, I don't talk to them anymore, but I am still grateful for being able to breathe and seeing life and living life and really just having this experience as if it's just this, as if I'm an alien who's experiencing life for the first time. Maybe I am. I'm wild. Um, so I do want to talk about my journey through faith, and I do want to start off in childhood. I am slightly vague about, not vague, not intentionally vague, but I guess intentionally. I do, like I said, I'm a private person. I do think keep things closer to my chest. I don't really want to talk about places that I lived during that time. It's really hard to talk about my childhood in any aspect. So I will cry. I don't want to cry on the internet. I know I've teared up a couple times talking about my past and how it has affected me. I just don't want to. I don't want to do that. I still can't read my book, even though my book is about my childhood. I don't want to I don't. I can't really read it without tearing up because of, where I was when I wrote it and what I was feeling when I wrote it. So it's kind of hard because it's like diving deep into that wound that I was, working on healing and closing. Anyways, not intentionally vague, but intentionally keeping things too close to me. So starting out, I was raised Pentecostal. I was on and off. It wasn't fully through the entire time, but it was on and off. We went to church. I remember being younger and my mom dressing me in frilly dresses and frilly socks and church shoes and, just fixing my hair so nicely. And I remember sitting in the pews listening to church sermons or going to Sunday school. So I do remember stuff like that early on. Not fully. We moved around a lot when I was also throughout my childhood into my teenage years. My parents were prone to moving a lot. So, on top of the abuse and moving, I have a lot of memory issues of like, "Oh, when did that happen?" You know what? I don't even know how old I was. And so I don't really talk about anything that I don't have full memory of because I don't want to I'm not gonna just make up anything for the sake of a story, so I won't really I don't know, if I don't have a good memory of certain aspects of my childhood, I don't really care to talk about it. Not that I wanna talk about it anyways, but to ensure that I'm telling my story as accurately as possible, I talk about the parts of it that really had the real core memories. Um, so early on, I do have memories of that. And then I would say I was around, can't really say for sure, but it was like 4 or 5 maybe? I don't know, maybe 6. It's hard, but we lived in the city, and while we lived in the city, my there's a lot of abuse that happened during that time, and it was really hard for me even during that time to kinda understand what was going on because I feel like my brain had blocked out a lot from before because there's, like, one memory that I have there's a really, really good memory that I have early on, and after that, I have there's no memories of anything happening, so there's, like, a good chunk of just, like, bam, right into living in the city, and during that time, it was just a lot, and I think it was just so much that my brain really just held on to things that it's like, "You coulda just let that one go. Coulda let all of this go, just take my brain out, it's fine, I don't need it." Um, I do need it. But so during that time, we were not in church, and I know that I had prayed because early on going to church, I knew people prayed for, needs and wants and, a miracle. And so I know that that's something that did happen. So there was times where I would pray, for invisibility or um prayed for things to just stop and, it didn't happen. So that was a really hard time for me. And obviously I didn't really have a good grasp on understanding what or who God was, um, or being in church or like any meaning behind religion and Pentecostal and Christianity or any form of it. So, yeah, that time was not fun. Then we moved to the country, and that's when we really got back into church, and this time I obviously had a way better memory of being in church and going to, you know I don't know if they still called it Sunday school when I was a little bit older, but anyways, youth groups and stuff like that, and, I just remembered a lot more, like, I remember, the person who abused me would, be in the play the drums and be on the stage, and I just couldn't understand. I just like, my brain could not understand because obviously I was still going through all of the sexual abuse. I couldn't understand how how God could let this happen, how easy it was for people to hide behind the guise of God and, believe they're holy. And it's like, you're a bad person. And being a child and really and this was mainly more so in like my I was probably like 11 or 12, is somewhere in between there. And I just remembered being so confused as to why this person was allowed to be seen as this holy person. And while he's over here, torturing me. So that was really hard for me to accept faith into my life. I mean, and obviously I was a child, so I don't think it was really expected of me to do so, but it really did leave an impression on how people can use religion to hide behind acts that they commit behind closed doors. So all of that time, it really and including my parents as well, it was just such a weird time for me because it really paved a way for me not to like church. Like, I did not like church at all. Like, I just did not believe in anything. I didn't believe in anything because I didn't believe that there could be any way that this would be allowed to happen and that it would be okay. Um, that any form of being that created this life would be okay with that another being hurting something they created. And I really didn't know how to function in faith. I just summed my life up to pain and punishment because it didn't make sense. Every aspect of my life really held a lot of um, pain and, you know, sexually abused, physically. I didn't have any friends at school. I was picked on heavily. We were not the richest people, and by not the richest, we were very poor. We went to school and we were not wearing the greatest clothes, and that's very detrimental to, being in school around other kids who are wearing nicer clothes and then always being the new kid. It was it was a lot. Like, there was a lot going on, and I just felt like there was no real place for me to breathe. There was no real place for me to exist where it was happiness, where it was joy and peace, and that was really hard for me to also believe that I'm getting, like, emotional, and I could tell because talking about my childhood is, like, one of the hardest things because It's just, like, not the best time of my life. Um, but anyways, so all of that, um, that I went through and all of the because it's especially during a lot of times, just being the new kid, it was really hard to believe that my life was meant for more. I mean, I did always have big dreams. I would lay on the trampoline listening to, like, Avril Lavigne or Three Doors Down. Away from the Sun was probably, like, one of my all-time favorite songs. Um, Gosh, there's that Avril Lavigne song where it's like, "Standing on the bridge, mhm, I thought that you'd be here by now." That song, that was my jam too. I really loved that song. But I mean, I did have, like, big dreams, and I loved writing. I always loved writing poems. I loved immersing myself in words, and I just I obviously leaned in harder to the depressing part of life, and, you know, because when you have that belief of your life is meant for just torture and you're meant to be here for pain and punishment, like, it's really hard to see any other way out. So, at some point, we moved to another state. We moved to North Carolina, and which was way across, and we were following our pastor, and this was, like, a huge shift for us because we're learning new people and, you know, nobody already likes you. No, they definitely don't like you because 'cause you're an outsider. It's, like, so weird. It's like, I'm just a child, people going to school with other children, but it's fine. So we end up going to church in North Carolina, and that was really hard too because it was such a different, place for us to be. It was nicer because it wasn't always cold during the winter, but it had its moments. But as far as, like, with my faith, it didn't strengthen my faith, it actually made it worse. Because during the time because things were coming to an end, um, in our in my whole family's faith, they were really losing their own faith in church. Um, so it was really a separation come and we were coming to a separation between the church and our family, and we didn't really like what was going on in the church and how things were happening, so my parents had made the decision to move back and leave the church, and then the pastor was like, "I hope your car flies off of the cliff." And I'm like, "That's crazy to say." Um So that really kind of just that, like, last bit really solidified, how I viewed, um, religion. It did not leave a great I mean, the whole experience, my life at that point did not leave a great, impression on me, like, religion didn't leave a great impression on me because I feel like I had experienced so much at that point in my life that it was really hard to believe that anything was real outside of, that God was real or that, the Bible was real or that, anything was real. So I spent a lot of my life really just trying to figure out what I really believed in. And a lot of times I leaned on spirituality. Um, where I would become overly spiritual, and I didn't like that either. I really didn't like spirituality because it felt like I was trying to perfect myself. It was always just like this, this perfection where I don't know, it didn't sit it sit it I'm trying to say this right, but it did in certain aspects feel right, but not fully. Like there was something missing. And I did, you know, try to navigate it with trying to figure out where I wanted to be or who I wanted to be or where I wanted to go. And I think a lot of times I would always come back to my past because of how that played out and how just it was really hard for me to accept that there was anything more than just human life. And then one day, I don't know, things kind of just changed for me. I started to I don't know, I always said I believe in a higher power, and I believe that everything happens for a reason. I believe we're here for a purpose. We can't just be here for nothing, and that could just be my own way of trying to understand or trying to believe that nothing just like, there has to be more, it has to be more, there can't just not be more, but I don't know, it felt right. Like, you get that feeling and then something just is like, it just feels right, like, there's something more to this, it's not just we're just here, just waiting to die, and that was my feeling, 'cause everyone arrives to their own moments at their own time, but me personally, I just had this feeling of there's more to this, there's a purpose for everything, and I would say gradually, slowly over time, I forgave my family, I gave them more grace than I think they that at that point they deserved. For me, I didn't want to hold on to hate. I really genuinely didn't wanna hold on to hate. That was not something that I ever wanted to that's not a road I ever wanted to go down, was hating others. I still got angry at them. I got angry because there's so many moving parts to the story that it was just really hard for me to accept. So there would be moments where I would get mad at them and, you know, say, "How could you let it happen? How could you guys blame me for it? I don't understand." And then it would just, the excuses. And so it wasn't always just like, "Oh, I forgive you." There was moments where I was 100% human because something hurt and I didn't understand it. And I was trying to understand my own self. And it was hard because none of my childhood made sense. Like, how could it all play out like that? Like, how could this all just turn out to be like this? It doesn't make sense to me. And I did wanna blame my parents. I really did wanna blame my parents for how my adulthood looked. But I couldn't because, yes, I was wronged on so many levels, and I wasn't given a fair chance. I don't think I was given a fair chance to have a healthy adulthood life and to really allow myself to become the person that I wish I could have been if nothing ever happened to the little girl. I, for so long, wanted to just blame them, but at some point, I just knew I had to somehow get over it, somehow get over, you know, over the fact that I couldn't blame them forever. I couldn't. That was that was not going to help me in the long run, blaming them for something that, yes, they did do, and yes, I'm upset with them and I'm angry with them. but I had to heal my own self. And I wasn't healing myself at the time where I was just like, I have to go forward. I can't go backwards. It already happened. It's already done. How do I want to show up? I wasn't healing myself then. I was allowing a lot of behaviors where I was just seeking, you know, because I felt like I didn't get a lot of love as a child. I was accepting behaviors of being talked down to or being made to feel small um, from my parents because, and I just allowed behavior like that because I worked so hard to try to just gain their approval. This has nothing to do with my journey through faith, kind of. But it was during all of this, like, crying and begging and, I was in a lot of really not so great relationships, and I was accepting a lot of behavior that kind of mimicked what I was doing with my own family and how they treated me and how they were it's almost like I was and I didn't see it at the time. I really didn't see it until recently, actually, that I realized that I was accepting behaviors that my parents, um, really were showing me. I was accepting those same behaviors and I was excusing what was happening, and it really made me believe I think it really made me see how there was a pattern, and it was so obvious to me that I was really still living in this state of I deserved punishment, I deserved pain because of how my child had set me up. Now, that was the end of the era. After I had that realization, that was the end of the era of me forgiving to forgive, to make others feel happy. This is where my faith kind of came heavily back into my life, um, because of I always had a belief in God after a certain time. I came to this place of I believe in God, and I believe there's a higher power. I believe that, life is too magical, and by I mean magical is like things are just so work in such an interesting way, like, things just, like, it's just there's gotta be more, and obviously things have happened in my life where it was almost like a miracle, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy," and I would go from praying to meditating to, just trying to do a lot of soul searching and really just trying to focus on myself unsuccessfully for so many years. Really focus on myself because, again, I would get caught up in the loop of needing love, of needing to be loved. I'm like, hang on, I'm back. So when I finally saw my pattern and I saw what I was really doing, that's when it kind of just all came crashing down. Um, and by crashing down, I mean my faith really hit me hard. And it was the sense of deserving, worthiness, um, of being seen, of being faithful. And I allowed myself to become vulnerable enough with my own faith to recognize that no, I didn't ask for those experiences. Um, but they no longer had control over me on how I showed up in today. That the beliefs that came from that time or the emotions or the thoughts that come from a place when I was going through a lot of pain. They didn't have to become my identity. Um, Even though, yes, I did experience them and yes, they were painful, I didn't have to carry them always. I didn't have to be that person. And it wasn't necessarily just me saying, oh, yeah, this is, you know, it was more so a feeling. And it was not it wasn't a feeling of I have to fix myself or I have to, it was, or I have to, be more or do more. It was more of a feeling of love, like this internal, like over me, like feeling of love that I had never felt before. That I don't know, like it was so heavy and it was a lot. And that's really when I started looking more into, the Bible and, really into Christ and what I feel like he was teaching us when it says walk like Christ. Something like that. I'm really not good with repeating things that I've read or um anything that pertains to knowledge that is someone can teach you. I'm really not good at remembering stuff like that. So if I mess something up, I'm sorry. But to walk like Christ. Uh so I really wanted to get more into understanding what it meant to walk like Christ, or be like Christ. Not to be Christ. I am not saying to be Christ. Be like Christ. Um, and obviously this is my belief, but um, I think a lot of, for me, my own interpretation of what I had been reading was more of, awareness and compassion, and not even only compassion towards others, but compassion towards yourself. And how understanding doesn't just help you or it's someone else. You can understand them. You don't have to excuse it, but you can understand it. Really just taking care of your own internal spirit in order to live free within your own mind, your own choice. You are free to choose a choice. You don't have to be controlled by your thoughts or your emotions. You really do have the sense of freedom, even if you feel like externally you're stuck. If externally you're stuck in a position that you don't want to be in, you still have this freedom within yourself to choose what you want to choose. And that was such a huge moment for me because I struggled so heavily with my faith. And I've never been ever been this strong in my faith before. I don't obviously view it as others view it. There's a lot of probably people that would say that if, my opinions are wrong, and that's totally fair. I don't, everyone has their own journeys, everyone sees things differently, and I'm just here to share my journey, and if any of it resonates with you, that's awesome, and if it doesn't, that's okay too. But for me, it's it's just a journey to love, be compassionate, be kind, don't be naive. There was even a part where, in the Bible where Christ had to when someone asked him a question, he says, "I need to go discuss this with my father." It wasn't, let me jump to say yes." It wasn't ever like that. Where it was just be conscious within your own body. And, there's one of my interpretations of turn the other cheek is when Christ tells us to turn the other cheek, it's not necessarily because it's just being surrendering to somebody, but it's really just being so strong in who you are that somebody hitting you wouldn't pull you out of character. That's my interpretation of it. So it's more for me a sense of just, being aware, staying aware, staying conscious, and being intentional with the choices that we make and, you know, really deciding who we want to be in the world and how we want to show up. And that's really where my faith has led me to this point and how I got to this place where I feel so strongly about and it's just a love for life and trying to I'm not perfect, no human is perfect, but it's really just not striving for perfection. We're not striving for perfection. We're not trying to rid ourselves of emotions or thoughts, but really just sitting with them and acknowledging them and seeing them and saying, I understand why you want to choose that and I understand why you see it that way. And I understand that you've been hurt and obviously this is me talking to myself. But I understand why I had been hurt and why I want to lash out, but I don't have to make that choice. I want to ensure that the choice that I make doesn't hurt the situation. I want to make sure the choice that I make helps the situation because I no longer want to carry something that hurts me. I don't want to carry around, you know, guilt or shame. I don't want to do something that hurts my own heart and would cause me to hurt someone else. I don't want to carry or I don't want to pass down trauma. I don't want to pass around pain. And I want to I'm not trying to be perfect. None of this is about perfection. It's about living honestly as human and really just living in my purpose. And that's what I do every day. And that's where my faith has led me and where I don't know, I feel the strongest. It's kind of funny because I think this is the saddest part of my life. I have never been sadder as far as like there always feels like there's a sadness behind my eyes. But at the happiest at the same time, it's so wild to me. But parts I feel sad. Um, it is one of other than my childhood, I do acknowledge my childhood and how, but as far as, like, the full brain being developed and, like, all of this, adulthood in my adulthood life, this is the saddest that I've ever been, but also the happiest and the most grateful I've ever been because I've reached this level of compassion towards myself, understanding towards myself, and, acceptance, especially acceptance, even acceptance in all of my flaws and my all of the things that I'm not, that I was like, "Ugh, I wish I could take that back," or "Why did you get so angry?" Or, you know, anything that made me feel guilty in the past, just really accepting all of that and just saying, "I'm not perfect, and I'm choosing to not regurgitate, things that I was shown, and I may hurt, but I don't need to hurt others, and I could be compassionate towards others without excusing things that they have done, um, because it's not always about excusing harm when it comes to understanding, you can understand without, saying, "Oh, it's fine, just don't do it again." Like, "No, you did something that hurt me, and I can understand why you decided to make that choice, but that doesn't take away the fact that you made a choice that now I have to make a decision on if I want to continue with you in my life or continue with you with not in my life, you know?" So, I don't know. That is my journey through my faith and how I don't know. I'm a huge fan of being faithful and walking like Christ, not in perfection, because I was never meant to be perfect. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to choose to be aware, stay aware, and make the best choice that I can. And hopefully, I fulfill my purpose so I don't have to come back to Earth, even though I love it. I love being here. Um, but my soul has been through a lot and we're slightly tired. We're slightly tired. At least I get really tired. I don't sleep well though. So that's my fault. But we are having a blast. Especially on this journey. I think this has been, like I said, the hardest year. I think it's over a year now. It's been the hardest time in my adult life ever, and it's been the most rewarding time also. And I know that sounds insane, but so true. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about myself. I love who I am. I accept who I am, and I will continue to work, grow, and just love life and be excited. On that note, that's all I have to say. I'm gonna leave it there. Just I'm just, I feel like I hope that makes sense. If it didn't, that's totally fine. If it did, that's awesomely fine. But yeah, on that note, I hope your mind is kind to you today. And that's all I have to say. Okay, bye.